Daniel wiped the grease off his hands with an old rag, stretching his sore back as the last car of the day rumbled out of his small-town repair shop. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an orange glow over the quiet streets. It had been a long day, but he didn't mind. Hard work was his way of life, and in a town like this, where everyone knew everyone, a good mechanic was always needed. As he locked up the shop, his thoughts drifted to Emily, his younger sister, who had moved back into their childhood home just a few months ago. She had been through hell. Her marriage to Jason, a charming businessman, had fallen apart in the most brutal way. Infidelity, betrayal, and legal battles had left her broken, and when she had nowhere else to go, Daniel had taken her in without hesitation. That's what brothers did. Lately, though, something felt off about Emily. She had always been the vibrant one, full of energy, always making jokes, never able to sit still. But since she moved in, she had been different. At first, he chalked it up to the divorce, but now he wasn't so sure. She seemed distracted. Restless. Some nights, she barely ate dinner, claiming she was too tired, yet he'd hear her pacing her room hours after midnight. Other times, she'd jump when her phone rang and step outside to take calls in hushed tones. Daniel wanted to ask her about it, but he didn't want to push. Emily had been through enough, and if she wanted to talk, she would. At least, that's what he told himself. That evening, as he walked up to the house, he noticed something strange. The porch light was off. It was a small thing, but Emily was meticulous about turning it on every night, just like their mother had done when they were kids. A tiny habit, but a habit nonetheless. He stepped inside, kicking off his boots, and called out, "Emily? You home?" No answer. His stomach twisted. He walked through the quiet house, glancing into the kitchen, where a half-eaten sandwich sat abandoned on the counter. Something was wrong. Just as he was about to head upstairs, he heard it, Emily's voice, low and urgent, coming from her room. He hesitated. He wasn't the type to eavesdrop, but something in her tone made him freeze. "No, I told you, I can't keep doing this," she whispered. "It's too risky." A pause. "I don't care about the money. It's not about that." Daniel's heart pounded. Money? What the hell was she talking about? He took a step closer, careful not to make a sound. "I know what I said, but everything's changed." He's starting to suspect. Daniel inhaled sharply. Was she talking about him? A few seconds later, he heard movement. The rustling of paper. A drawer opening. Daniel barely had time to step back before Emily's door swung open. She gasped when she saw him standing there. "Jesus, Dan. You scared me." Daniel forced a casual smile. "Sorry. Just got home. Everything okay?" Emily's eyes darted away for the briefest second before she nodded. "Yeah. Just, work stuff." "Work?" Emily didn't have a job right now. Before he could say anything, she clutched her purse tighter and hurried past him. "I need some air. I'll be back soon." Daniel watched as she grabbed her keys and slipped out the front door. A moment later, he heard her car engine roar to life. Something was definitely wrong. For a few moments, he debated whether to let it go. Maybe it was none of his business. Maybe Emily was just dealing with the fallout of her divorce in her own way. But then he thought about the way she had looked at him, like she was hiding something. Before he could stop himself, he walked into her room. It was the same as it had always been, neatly made bed, shelves filled with old books, a framed picture of the two of them as kids on her nightstand. But there was something new. Something out of place. On the desk, next to her laptop, was a small, black leather folder. Daniel's gut told him to leave it alone. But his hands moved on their own. Inside the folder was a thick envelope stuffed with cash. Hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars. His breath caught. He flipped through the stack of bills, his mind racing. Where had Emily gotten this kind of money? Beneath the envelope was something even stranger, a cheap burner phone, the kind you bought at gas stations. He pressed the power button, and the screen flickered to life. One new message. Unknown number, midnight. Same place. No mistakes. Daniel's blood turned to ice. His hands clenched around the phone. Emily was in trouble. And if she wouldn't tell him what was going on, he'd find out himself. That night, he waited. Emily returned home an hour later, acting like nothing had happened. She gave him a small smile, said she was tired, and went straight to bed. But Daniel wasn't going to sleep. At 11:30 p.m., he slipped outside and got into his truck, parking it down the street where he had a clear view of their house. At 11:57 p.m., Emily stepped out, dressed in black, her hair tucked into a hoodie. She glanced around nervously before getting into her car and driving off. Daniel started his engine and followed her. She drove out of town, taking the back roads, the ones barely anyone used at night. After 20 minutes, she pulled into a deserted parking lot near an old warehouse. Daniel killed his lights and parked a safe distance away. His sister stepped out of her car and looked around. A moment later, another car pulled up beside her. A black sedan. Tinted windows. No plates. Daniel's stomach churned. A man stepped out. He was tall, well-dressed, wearing a long black coat. Daniel couldn't see his face, but he saw the way Emily tensed when she spoke to him. They exchanged a few words, too quiet for Daniel to hear. Then, Emily reached into her bag and handed the man something, a flash drive. Daniel's heart pounded in his ears. The man took it, nodded, and got back into his car. Seconds later, he was gone. Emily stood there for a long time, staring at the empty parking lot. Then she turned and walked back to her car. Daniel gripped the steering wheel, his mind racing. What the hell had he just witnessed? And what secret was his sister keeping that was dangerous enough to make her act like this? He didn't know the answer. But he was damn sure he was going to find out. Daniel sat in his truck, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His breath was shallow, his pulse erratic. What had he just witnessed? His sister, his Emily, handing over a flash drive in a desolate parking lot in the middle of the night, dealing with some stranger who screamed danger just by the way he carried himself. The envelope of cash, the burner phone, the cryptic messages, it all pointed to something far more serious than he had imagined. And now, his gut twisted with a single, terrifying realization. Emily was in trouble. His first instinct was to drive straight home, confront her, demand answers. But something held him back. If he barged in without knowing the full story, she would shut down. He had seen it before, the way she built walls around herself when she was scared, the way she locked people out when she was hurting. No, if he wanted to help, he needed to know. And that meant figuring this out before she even realized he was onto her. As Emily's taillights disappeared down the road, Daniel waited a few beats before turning his truck back on. He hesitated, then pulled out his phone. There was one person who might be able to help him. Detective Carter. The voice on the other end was groggy, irritated. Of course, it was almost 1 a.m. Carter, it's Dan. A sigh. Jesus, Dan, you do realize normal people call at decent hours, right? This isn't normal. That got his attention. What's going on? Daniel exhaled, choosing his words carefully. I need you to run a plate for me. Black sedan, no plates, but it had a dealership sticker on the back. Could have been removed, but it's a start. There was silence on the other end. Dan, you know I can't just pull that kind of info without a case. Then make it a case. Daniel hesitated. Not me. Emily. Carter swore under his breath. Shit. Alright, give me a few hours. I'll see what I can dig up. Appreciate it. Hanging up, Daniel knew he wouldn't get any sleep. His mind raced with every worst-case scenario. Was she in debt? Blackmail? Something worse? He hated not knowing, but for now, all he could do was wait. When he finally pulled into the driveway, Emily's car was already there. Lights off, house silent. Inside, he moved carefully, straining to hear any movement. But her door was closed, and when he cracked it open just an inch, he saw her curled up on her bed, fast asleep. Or at least, pretending to be. He watched her for a long moment, something in his chest tightening. No matter what mess she was in, he was going to get her out of it. The next morning, Emily acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, scrolled through her phone, even asked him how work was going, like she hadn't been sneaking out at midnight to meet with a mysterious man in an empty lot. Daniel played along, but inside, his mind was spinning. Then Carter called. That plate? It belongs to a rental agency. The car was checked out 2 weeks ago by a guy named Richard Kane. The name meant nothing to Daniel. Who is he? Carter hesitated. That's the problem. There's no real record of him. No social security, no past addresses. Just a few shell companies under his name. Whatever your sister's mixed up in, it's not small time. Daniel's stomach twisted. Look, Dan, Carter continued, I can push this higher, but if Emily's involved, you need to get her to talk before this blows up. Daniel knew he was right. That night, he made up his mind. No more waiting. No more guessing. When Emily got home, he was waiting. We need to talk. She froze in the doorway. About what? Daniel stared at her. Don't do that. Don't act like everything's fine. She swallowed. Dan. I know about last night. Silence. Her face paled. Who was that guy? What's on the flash drive? She shook her head. I can't. Emily. Her eyes were filled with something he had never seen before. Fear. Please, Dan. Just, let it go. I can't. His voice was firm. I saw the money. The burner phone. The messages. You're in something deep, and I need to know what it is. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then, she exhaled shakily. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. She hesitated, biting her lip. It's evidence. Daniel frowned. Evidence? She nodded. On Jason. Her ex-husband. Daniel felt his stomach drop. What the hell did you get yourself into? Emily's voice was barely a whisper. Jason isn't who people think he is. Daniel's blood turned cold. What do you mean? Emily closed her eyes, gathering herself. He was involved in things. Illegal things. Fraud, embezzlement, laundering money through fake businesses. I found proof, emails, bank records. But Jason has people protecting him. The kind of people who don't leave loose ends. Daniel's heart pounded. You're saying he. I'm saying he would rather see me disappear than let that evidence get out. For a long time, Daniel just stared at her. Then why the hell are you handling this alone? Emily's laugh was bitter. Because if I go to the cops, he'll know. He has connections everywhere. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to hit something. Wanted to find Jason and make him regret ever laying a hand on his sister. Who was the guy last night? Emily hesitated. A journalist. Someone who can take this public. Daniel rubbed a hand down his face. This was so much worse than he thought. Emily, if Jason finds out. I know. Her voice was small, but firm. I don't have a choice, Dan. If I don't do this, he wins. Daniel exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Then we do it smart. Emily blinked. What? His jaw tightened. You're not alone in this anymore. A tear slipped down her cheek. Dan. We're family. We do this together. She let out a shaky breath, nodding. Daniel knew one thing for sure, Jason had made a mistake thinking he could silence Emily. Because now, she had him. And he would burn the world down before he let anyone hurt her. Daniel barely slept that night. His mind raced with every possible scenario, every risk Emily was taking, every danger lurking just beyond the surface. If Jason really had the kind of connections Emily claimed, then she wasn't just in over her head, she was walking a tightrope over a pit of sharks, and one wrong step could get her killed. He lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, going over everything she had told him. A journalist. A flash drive full of evidence. A dangerous ex-husband with powerful friends. And Emily, stubborn and fearless, trying to take him down alone. No. Not alone. Daniel wasn't going to let that happen. By the time the sun rose, he had made his decision. He got up, pulled on his jeans, grabbed his keys, and left the house before Emily was even awake. He needed to know what they were up against. His first stop was Carter. The detective was waiting for him at a diner on the edge of town, already nursing a cup of coffee, his badge clipped to his belt but hidden beneath a leather jacket. When Daniel slid into the booth across from him, Carter looked up with a tired expression. I ran Jason through our system. Daniel's stomach clenched. And? Carter exhaled. Nothing. Guy's as clean as a whistle. Too clean. Daniel frowned. What does that mean? It means either he's the most law-abiding citizen in the state, or someone's been scrubbing his records. Carter took a sip of his coffee. I'm guessing it's the second one. Daniel's jaw tightened. Emily wasn't exaggerating, then. No, Carter said grimly. She wasn't. Daniel leaned forward. She gave a flash drive to a journalist last night. I need to know who he is. If he's trustworthy. Carter raised an eyebrow. You don't trust your sister's judgment? Daniel hesitated. I trust her. I don't trust the people she's dealing with. Carter sighed. All right. Give me a name, and I'll see what I can find. Daniel pulled out his phone and scrolled through Emily's messages. Last night, after their conversation, she had left her phone charging in the kitchen. He hadn't meant to invade her privacy, but this was bigger than personal boundaries. He found the message thread easily. Her journalist contact was saved as M. Lawson. He slid the phone across the table. That's him. Carter glanced at the screen, then pulled out his own phone. He typed something, waited a beat, then smirked. Well, I'll be damned. Daniel's pulse spiked. What? Carter turned the screen toward him. Matthew Lawson. Investigative reporter. Specializes in government corruption and organized crime. Got fired from a major newspaper last year for getting too close to a case. Since then, he's been running his own independent blog. And guess what? What? Carter leaned in. A few months ago, he started sniffing around some shady financial dealings in this area. Money laundering. Fake shell companies. Offshore accounts. Daniel's chest tightened. Jason. Carter nodded. I'd bet money on it. Daniel exhaled sharply. This was bigger than he thought. If Lawson was already looking into Jason, then Emily had just handed him the last piece of the puzzle. But if Jason got wind of this... Daniel clenched his fists. He needed to get ahead of this. Where can I find Lawson? Carter studied him. Dan. Where? Carter sighed, then pulled up an address. He's staying at a motel just outside town. Room 214. Daniel didn't wait. He grabbed his keys and left. It took 20 minutes to reach the motel. It was the kind of place where the neon sign flickered, the parking lot was cracked with weeds, and the rooms were rented by the hour. Daniel scanned the lot. An old sedan with out-of-state plates sat near the office, probably Lawson's. He climbed the stairs, found room 214, and knocked. Nothing. He knocked again, harder this time. The door opened a crack. A man in his 40s peered out, unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes. Who the hell are you? Daniel Carter. Emily's brother. Lawson stiffened. Shit. He pulled the door open wider and ushered Daniel inside. The room was a mess, papers, files, and empty coffee cups littered the table. A laptop sat open, displaying a document filled with redacted names and offshore bank accounts. Lawson ran a hand through his hair. I was wondering when you'd show up. Daniel folded his arms. You knew? Lawson sighed. Emily told me you might come looking for me. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Then start talking. Lawson hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But you're not going to like what you hear. Daniel stayed silent. Lawson sat down and gestured to the laptop. Your sister wasn't lying. Jason is dirty. He's been laundering money for years through fake businesses, funneling it overseas. But here's where it gets worse, he's got law enforcement in his pocket. Daniel's stomach dropped. Lawson continued. Judges, cops, city officials. People who should be stopping this are either being paid off or threatened. That's why he's untouchable. Daniel clenched his fists. Then why are you still alive? Lawson gave a humorless laugh. Because he doesn't know how much I have yet. He thinks I'm still digging. Your sister just handed me everything I need to blow this wide open. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then why hasn't it gone public? Lawson hesitated. Because I need one more thing. What? Proof that Jason's been threatening witnesses. That he's willing to make people disappear. Lawson looked at him grimly. And your sister might be the key to that. Daniel felt ice crawl up his spine. What do you mean? Lawson exhaled. Emily's already been threatened, hasn't she? Daniel's mind flashed back to the late-night calls, the paranoia, the way Emily had frozen when he mentioned Jason's name. Yes, Daniel admitted. Lawson leaned forward. We need to record it. Catch them in the act. If we can prove that Jason is silencing people, the feds will have no choice but to move in. Daniel shook his head. No way. I'm not using Emily as bait. She's already in this, Daniel. Whether you like it or not. Daniel ran a hand down his face. This was insane. His sister was being used as a pawn in a game she didn't even fully understand. And yet, if they didn't do something, Jason would keep getting away with it. Daniel's phone buzzed. Emily. He answered immediately. Em? Her voice was shaking. Dan. Someone's watching the house. His heart nearly stopped. What? Emily's voice was barely a whisper. There's a car parked outside. Tinted windows. I saw someone move inside. Dan, I'm scared. Daniel's blood ran cold. He turned to Lawson. We don't have time to wait. Lawson nodded grimly. Then we do it tonight. Daniel clenched his jaw. No more running. No more hiding. It was time to end this. Daniel gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white as he sped back toward the house. His heart hammered against his ribs, each beat like a countdown to disaster. Emily was alone, and someone was watching her. Jason's men, it had to be them. They were done with threats. Now they were making their presence known. "Emily, listen to me," he said, trying to keep his voice steady as he navigated the back roads at breakneck speed. "Go to my room. Lock the door. Do not come out until I get there." "Dan, what if?" "Don't argue, just do it." He heard the rustle of movement, then the soft click of a door closing. "Okay," she whispered. Daniel gritted his teeth. If they so much as laid a hand on her. The headlights cut through the darkness as he approached his street. Then, just as he turned onto his block, he saw it, the black car parked outside his house, idling like a predator in the night. He killed the lights and coasted toward the curb, parking a few houses down. His mind raced. If he just stormed in, whoever was in that car could take off before he got close. And then what? He'd be chasing shadows. He needed to see their faces. Reaching into the glove compartment, he pulled out his old service pistol. He hadn't used it since leaving the military, but the weight in his hand was familiar. He checked the magazine, loaded. Safety off. With careful steps, he slipped out of the car and moved through the shadows along the side of his neighbor's house. His heart pounded in his ears as he crept closer to the black vehicle. Then, a flicker of movement. A figure inside the car, barely visible through the tinted glass. Daniel crouched low, every muscle tense. He needed to get closer. He was just about to move when the car door swung open. A man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark coat. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a phone. Daniel's breath hitched. He had to act now. With a quick step forward, he pressed the barrel of the pistol against the back of the man's skull. "Don't move." The man froze. Then, slowly, he raised his hands. "Turn around." Slowly. The man did as he was told, and when Daniel saw his face, his stomach turned to ice. It was Damon Carter. The sheriff's right-hand man. Daniel had seen him before, at town events, at the bar, always standing just behind Sheriff Tate, the same unreadable expression on his face. Damon smirked. "Hey there, Danny." Daniel's grip on the gun tightened. "What the hell are you doing here?" Damon tilted his head, as if amused. "Just keeping an eye on things." "Bullshit," Daniel spat. "You're working for Jason." Damon chuckled. "Now, that's an interesting theory." Daniel pressed the gun harder against his skull. "I don't have time for games." "Why are you watching my sister?" Damon's smirk faded. "You're making a mistake, kid. You and Emily both." Daniel's pulse pounded. "Threatening my sister? Wrong move." Damon sighed. "It's not a threat. It's a warning. Back off." Daniel clenched his jaw. "Not happening." Damon gave a slow nod, as if he had expected that answer. Then, in a flash, he moved. He lunged to the side, knocking Daniel's arm away just as the gun went off, bang. The shot echoed through the quiet neighborhood. Damon tackled him, and they hit the ground hard. Daniel's head slammed against the pavement, but he held onto the gun. He twisted, driving his elbow into Damon's ribs. Damon grunted, but he was fast. He grabbed Daniel's wrist, trying to wrench the gun away. Daniel gritted his teeth and drove his knee into the man's stomach. Damon gasped, and in that split second, Daniel yanked free and rolled on top of him. He pressed the gun to Damon's chest. "Move again, and I'll put you down." Damon coughed, laughing through the pain. "You don't have the guts." Daniel's finger twitched on the trigger. Daniel. Emily's voice. He looked up. She was standing in the doorway, wide-eyed, gripping a baseball bat. For a second, everything froze. Damon took that second. He slammed his knee into Daniel's stomach and threw him off. Daniel hit the pavement, coughing. By the time he looked up, Damon was already scrambling to his feet. He staggered toward the car, yanked the door open, and threw himself inside. The tires screeched as the car sped off into the night. Daniel cursed, pushing himself to his feet. Emily ran to him. Dan. Are you okay? He took a deep breath, forcing himself to steady. I'm fine. Emily's eyes darted to the gun in his hand, then back to his face. What the hell just happened? Daniel exhaled sharply. We're in deeper than we thought. He helped her back inside, locking the doors behind them. Emily was shaking. Dan, he was watching the house. He saw me. What if? Daniel cut her off. I won't let anything happen to you. Her eyes welled with tears, but she nodded. Daniel turned back to the window, staring out into the night. They had just declared war. And there was no turning back now. Daniel barely slept that night. Every creak of the house, every rustling branch outside sent his nerves into overdrive. He sat by the window, his gun within arm's reach, watching the street for any sign of Damon's return. Emily had eventually fallen asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, but her face remained tense, her body curled up as if bracing for another attack. By the time dawn broke, exhaustion weighed down on him, but he refused to let his guard down. He had made a promise, to protect Emily at all costs. And now, he knew just how dangerous their enemies were. Damon's words echoed in his mind. Back off. You're making a mistake. It wasn't just a warning, it was a statement. A confirmation that they had stepped into something bigger than they realized. Sheriff Tate, Jason, Damon, they weren't just criminals operating in the shadows. They controlled the town, pulling strings behind the scenes, and anyone who got in their way was quickly eliminated. Daniel had spent years in the military, seeing corrupt men operate in war zones. But he never thought he'd see the same thing in his own hometown. When Emily stirred, her eyes fluttering open, he was already in the kitchen making coffee. She sat up, rubbing her temples. Did you sleep at all? She asked. Daniel shook his head. Didn't have time for that. She swallowed hard, clearly remembering the night before. What do we do now? We need evidence, he said firmly. We can't just accuse the sheriff's department without proof. And we need to find out what Jason is really up to. Emily hesitated. Daniel, last night, Damon wasn't just watching the house. He was looking through Dad's old files. Daniel turned to her, his eyes narrowing. What? She nodded. I saw him through the window. He had a flashlight, and he was looking through the garage. I think he was searching for something. Daniel felt a chill creep down his spine. Their father had been a journalist, one of the few men in town who had dared to dig into corruption. If Damon was looking through their father's things, it meant whatever he had been working on before he died was still relevant. And dangerous. Without another word, Daniel strode out to the garage. Dust covered the shelves, stacks of old newspapers and notebooks piled in the corners. He remembered his father spending hours here, scribbling notes, making phone calls, always looking for the next big story. He started going through the old files, flipping through notebooks, searching for anything related to Jason or Tate. Pages and pages of investigations, but nothing that directly tied them to any crimes. Until a manila envelope, taped beneath an old wooden workbench. Daniel ripped it free, his pulse spiking. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable, his father's. Emily stood behind him, holding her breath as he opened it. Inside were photographs. Black and white images of Jason, Damon, and Sheriff Tate, standing in a warehouse, shaking hands with men Daniel didn't recognize. Bags of money exchanged. A shipment of something being loaded into trucks. And then, one final picture. A corpse. A man, shot in the chest, lying in what looked like an abandoned factory. The timestamp in the corner showed it was taken 3 days before their father died. Emily gasped, covering her mouth. Dan, do you think Dad was killed because of this? Daniel clenched his jaw. Looks like it. His father had been onto something big. Big enough to get him silenced. And now, Daniel and Emily were the only ones left to expose the truth. His mind raced. He needed to get these photos to someone they could trust. But who? The sheriff's department was compromised. Anyone connected to them could tip Jason off. Emily tugged his sleeve. What about Sam? Daniel hesitated. Sam Rivera was an investigative journalist who used to work with their father. If anyone could take these pictures and turn them into something bigger, it was him. Yeah, Daniel said. Sam's our best shot. They quickly gathered the documents, stuffing them into a backpack. But just as they zipped it up, a loud bang echoed from the front of the house. A gunshot. Emily screamed. Daniel grabbed his gun and ran to the living room. The front window was shattered, glass scattered across the floor. He could hear tires screeching as a car sped away. Someone had just fired a warning shot. Emily was trembling, backing away from the broken window. Dan, they know. His heart pounded. They weren't just watching anymore. They were acting. Whoever had just fired that shot had meant for it to be a message. Back off. Or die. Daniel's hands shook with rage. He had spent years fighting in foreign wars, watching people suffer at the hands of corruption. He wasn't about to let it happen here. We leave now, he said, grabbing the backpack. Emily nodded, wiping her tears. They had no choice. They had to get out before it was too late. But as they ran out the back door and toward the car, Daniel felt a sinking feeling in his chest. This wasn't just a fight for justice anymore. It was a fight for survival. Daniel gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white as he sped down the highway, leaving their childhood home behind. Emily sat beside him, clutching the backpack full of their father's evidence like it was her lifeline. Her eyes darted to the side mirror every few seconds, fear evident in her trembling hands. They know, Dan, she whispered. They won't stop. I know, he said, his voice strained. But neither will we. The world outside blurred as they raced toward Sam Rivera's home. It was a risk. Damon, Jason, and Sheriff Tate had eyes everywhere, but Sam had once been their father's closest friend. If anyone could help them, it was him. Emily fidgeted with the zipper on the bag. What if Sam's compromised? What if he's working with them? Daniel's jaw tightened. It was a possibility. One he wasn't ready to entertain. We'll know soon enough. They drove for nearly 2 hours, winding through back roads and switching routes twice to make sure they weren't followed. When they finally pulled up to a modest cabin nestled in the woods, Daniel killed the engine and scanned the area. No other cars. No movement. Just the soft rustling of trees in the evening wind. Emily hesitated before stepping out. I have a bad feeling. We don't have a choice. They approached the cabin, Daniel knocking twice in a rhythmic pattern, the same knock his father used whenever he visited Sam. A pause. Then, the sound of locks clicking. The door creaked open, revealing Sam Rivera, a man in his late 50s with graying hair and sharp, calculating eyes. Daniel. Emily. His voice was laced with both surprise and urgency. Inside. Now. They hurried in, and Sam immediately bolted the door behind them. His home was cluttered, books and documents scattered across tables. A half-empty bottle of whiskey sat on the counter, next to an ashtray filled with cigarette butts. The man looked tired, worn down by years of chasing the truth. Daniel wasted no time. He dropped the backpack onto the table and unzipped it, pulling out the photos. Dad was killed for this. Sam's eyes darkened as he flipped through the pictures. His fingers traced the grainy images of Jason, Damon, and Sheriff Tate shaking hands with unknown men, exchanging money. Then, his gaze landed on the final photo, the corpse. A heavy silence settled over the room. "I knew your father was onto something," Sam muttered. "But I never saw these." Emily swallowed hard. "We need your help." Sam exhaled slowly, rubbing his face. "You kids have no idea what you've gotten yourselves into." Daniel leaned in. "Then tell us." Sam sat down, motioning for them to do the same. He ran a hand through his hair, his fingers shaking slightly. "Your father was investigating more than just corruption. He found out that Jason and Tate were involved in human trafficking." Emily's breath hitched. "What?" Sam nodded. "They used their positions in law enforcement to cover up missing persons reports, reroute investigations, and silence anyone who got too close." He tapped the image of the dead man. This is James Carter. An undercover DEA agent who had infiltrated their operation. He was exposed and executed. Your father must have found out." Daniel's blood turned to ice. "They killed Dad because he knew." Sam's expression was grim. "And if they find out you have this," he gestured to the evidence, "they'll come after you, too." Emily gripped Daniel's arm. "Dan, we have to go to the FBI." Sam shook his head. "You think you can just walk into a field office with this and they'll immediately take down Jason and Tate? No. These guys have connections, people inside law enforcement who protect them. You need to be smart about this." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then what do we do?" Sam stood and grabbed an old, worn notebook from his shelf. He flipped through the pages before pulling out a card and handing it to Daniel. "There's a federal agent I trust, Agent Caldwell. He's been chasing this trafficking ring for years. But he needs undeniable proof." Daniel nodded. "Then we give it to him." Sam hesitated. "It's not that simple. You have to get it to him without being caught. Once you do, you disappear." Emily's eyes widened. "Disappear? If Jason and Tate find out you gave this to the feds, they won't stop until you're dead." Sam looked between them. "Are you ready for that?" A heavy silence filled the room. Daniel looked at Emily. He had spent his entire life protecting her. And now, this was the only way to truly keep her safe. "We don't have a choice," he said finally. "We end this." Sam nodded. "Then we move now. Before they realize where you've gone." They repacked the evidence and moved toward the door, but before they could step outside, gunshots rang through the trees. Emily screamed as a bullet shattered the window. "Down!" Daniel shouted, pulling her to the floor. Sam grabbed a shotgun from beneath the couch and moved toward the door, peering out. "They're here." Damon's voice echoed from outside. "Come on out, Daniel. Let's talk." Daniel's heart pounded. Like hell. More bullets sprayed the cabin, shattering glass, splintering wood. Sam fired back, hitting one of the gunmen. "We need to get out." Daniel grabbed Emily's hand, dragging her toward the back exit. Sam covered them as they sprinted into the trees, gunfire roaring behind them. They ran blindly through the forest, branches whipping against their skin. They could hear footsteps, Jason's men chasing them. Daniel yanked Emily behind a large rock, motioning for silence. Their pursuers slowed, searching. Find them. Jason's voice growled. We can't let them leave. Emily clutched Daniel's arm, her breath shaky. Daniel pointed to the river ahead. We swim. Emily's eyes widened in terror. Dan. No choice. They sprinted toward the water and dove in just as gunshots rang out behind them. The cold was shocking, but Daniel held on to Emily, dragging her with him as they swam downriver. Minutes passed. The gunfire faded. When they finally surfaced, gasping for air, they had drifted far from the cabin. Emily coughed, shivering. What now? Daniel pulled her onto the riverbank, glancing around. We get to Caldwell. And we end this. Emily met his eyes. Despite her fear, there was something else there now. Determination. They had lost their father. But they wouldn't lose this fight. Together, they would bring Jason, Tate, and every corrupt officer in that town to their knees. No matter what it took.